Hello. So in the previous video we looked at some of the simple features of the GIS portal about identifying some indicators that you want to load on the map and viewing the data that are available. In this video we're going to look at some of the slightly more advanced features. So on the indicators panel by default is a set of indicators that have been defined by the person who set up the portal in the first place. Now there are several different varieties of this portal. Some are aimed at ocean colour, so ocean-based data. Some are looking at land-based data, so there's one in particular that looks at the global hydrological cycle. What we're going to look at now is how you can add data from an external source and view that data set on the same map alongside the data that you've already got available here. So at the moment I have my chlorophyll concentration monthly data set, and I can browse this spatially, and I can flick through the available time slices. But what if I wanted to use chlorophyll data with something else? So on this tab here, the map settings or the display settings tab, there is a box at the bottom that allows you to add an external web map service URL. So if you have access to a data set that's made available via a web map service, you can copy and paste the URL into this box and load up the data that are available there. So I've found this one is a NASA WMS, so I'm going to copy the URL and paste it into this text box here. When I click Submit URL, what that will do is it will go off and contact the NASA server at the address that I've given it and query it to ask what data is available at that address. And when it comes back, the default list of indicators that was here has now been replaced by a list of indicators that are available at the WMS that I've specified. So this particular one has lots of different indicators available. It's quite an extensive list, and I could scroll through and say, well, we'll look at I don't know, say land surface temperature in the daytime over 8 days. So by clicking on one, that again, it will go and contact the WMS server with the request that I've made and come back with the data. So in this instance, I've got a different scale bar here. I've got an indicator type, a bit about who's provided it, the bounding box, the date range, and an abstract. It gives me a bit more information about the data that I've asked for. Now, how much information appears in this panel on the left will depend on how much information the data provider has added to their data files. So this it's very well described. It's got contact details as well, you can see, and I can do everything that I could do with the chlorophyll concentration in terms of exploring. I can do with this new data set that we've just loaded, the land surface temperature. So as before, I can move around the map. I can see that we've got a start date of February 2000 and an end date of January 2016. So I should be able to move the slider back to sometime 2008 and see the changes in temperature. Now if I look on the layer settings panel, because this data are coming from a remote server, there are fewer options in how you can manipulate the data. So I've got no real control over the scale bar, for example. I don't have the opportunity to change the palette. I can still change the opacity, and that will still work. So I can see the layer underneath. The other thing I don't have the ability to do is perform any kind of analysis. Now that's because at the moment the portal doesn't know about a web coverage service. Web coverage service allows the portal to extract data numerically rather than in terms of map tiles visually. And if you have a WCS or web coverage service URL that matches the web map service URL that you've provided, then the same set of analysis tools that allow you to produce plots and download data will be available as well. So I have over here, this is our thread server at PML, and this particular data set is a model data set, and it is daily air temperature. So I'm going to copy the address, the WMS, go into my display settings panel and paste that URL in this box here. So again, it will go off and contact the WMS server and come back with a list of available indicators at that address. So there's just one in this case, air temperature. So by clicking on that, now it's model data, so it covers the entire globe. And a similar situation, I've got a scale bar. This doesn't look quite as pretty as the others, but still the bounding box, the date range, an abstract, and contact details. Now, because I know the WCS URL for this data set as well, I can paste this in here too. So the WCS URL, I'm going to copy that address, paste that into this text box, and submit the URL. Now once I do that, I have all the tools available to me to allow me to draw a polygon and make a new plot, as I could using one of the built-in indicators. We'll send that away for now. So you can see how you can add external data sets to the portal to combine them with the view of the data sets that are available when you first arrive. Now, what will happen is the next time I come to this portal, I will have the original view that I had. So if I refresh the page, so start building a map, and you'll see now that I've reverted back to just the two indicators that I have by default. So I've lost the external NASA WMS server that I had, and I've lost my external model air temperature data. There is a way around this, and the portal has a login facility that allows you to use your Google authentication details to register with the site. So as a registered user, I can save details of external data sets that I've added. So if I sign in with Google, it prompts me for my email address and my password. And once I'm authenticated, what I can do is, if I copy that NASA WMS address again and paste it in here, when I hit submit WMS URL, again it will go off and contact the server and find the details of the data that are available there, and I can select from the list again. But I've also got this button here that allows me to add layers. So by adding layers, this is saving the details of the layer with my user account. So at this point, the provider name doesn't like dots, so I have to take the dot out. Now, looking at the top half of the screen, I can provide details of who the provider is and their contact details. At the bottom half of the screen, I've got details of the indicators that are available. So it's telling me there's one of 129, and at the bottom here you've got a pager that allows you to go back and forth between indicators. So I can change any of this information here, and once I've made the changes that I want to, I can hit submit layers. What that will do is it will save these data layers with my user account. So the next time I come to the portal, those data will already be available. I won't have to go through the process of adding the WMS URL again. So let's hit submit layers. Okay, so now I've got the two layers, the two indicators that were there by default, and I've got my NASA ones as well. So I can go through here and say, well, let's look at some active fire data, for example. So the next time, if I reload again, and by reloading the page, I'm not actually logged out, so I'm still logged in. If I look at the indicators panel, my NASA data are there. If I go to the user dashboard and log out, the NASA data have been removed because they're only available to me. In this section, we're going to look at another feature within the portal, which are the collaboration tools. These are a set of features that are designed to allow users, a number of users, 2 or more, to interact jointly with an instance of the portal. Think of this a bit like screen sharing. If you have an online meeting tool like GoToMeeting or Skype perhaps, where you can be connected over the internet and 2 machines can see what each other is doing on the screen. This takes it a step further. So if you have 2 users in different places, each with their own computer, they will start up an instance of the browser, start up an instance of the portal within their browser and interact with it as we have been doing within this video and the previous videos. The collaboration tools connect the 2 browsers so that whatever happens to the portal in one user's browser is replicated in the other user's browser. So this is similar to screen sharing in that both users are seeing the same thing, but it's different in that when the meeting or the conversation is over, both users take away their own instance of the portal running on their machine, and they can continue to interact with it as if they would normally. So to get started, the first thing you need to do is be logged in. So we're using Google for authentication. So I'm going to sign in with Google. And password. Once I'm logged in, if I click on this button here, this is the collaboration tab, I've got 2 options. I can join a session or I can host a session. So as the person who's starting the meeting, you want to host a session. So if I start a new session, what that does, it creates a virtual room and it gives me a unique reference number. That's this reference number here. Now I can send that invitation, send an invite to this room to as many people as I want to. It gives me a URL that I can either email or Skype or IRC to anyone who I want to join the room, and when they log in, they'll become visible